You wouldn't notice it at first. A lone buoy, swaying in the tide like a memory half remembered. Its paint, once bright blue, now chipped and faded by storms. Rust clings to its base like old grief, orange-brown and stubborn, and below it, something waits. Wrapped in barnacles, salt-bitten, silent. A camera, sealed shut, as if protecting a secret the sea was never meant to keep. The wind never stops here. It threads through the air like breath through teeth, whistling past the rocks, whispering names no one's spoken aloud in years. Crescent Bay isn't on most maps anymore. The town shrank with the tide its swimmers gone, its pier splintered and the shoreline marked not by footprints, but by loss. Out past the reach of the boats, where the water turns darker, colder, that's where she disappeared. 4 years ago. No splash, no scream, just a vanishing. She was 19, strong, unstoppable, the kind of girl people said was going places. But places are funny things. Some lead you home, others don't. Her father never stopped searching. They said he was wasting his life, diving every morning like the ocean owed him an answer. Like grief could be measured in breath and pressure. In the silt between stones. But the ocean keeps what it takes until it doesn't. And one morning, just before the sun broke the horizon, he surfaced with something clutched in his hand. Heavy, familiar, terrifying. Her camera, still whole, still waiting. The footage inside it would shatter what little peace the town had left and unearth the truth buried deeper than anyone ever dared to imagine. Because sometimes the missing don't drown. Sometimes they're taken. And sometimes they leave behind a trail, soft as a ripple in the water. This is one of those stories. And it begins where the silence ends. Jack Callahan never really fit into town life, not even before everything went quiet. There was always something about him that belonged to the sea. You could see it in the way he moved, steady, unhurried, like a man used to pressure, used to silence, used to waiting. He'd been a diver all his life, not the kind with flashlights and cameras, but the old school kind, the kind who slipped beneath the surface like a prayer. His daughter, Mia, had inherited that stillness. But where Jack was calm and methodical, Mia was speed and fire. She didn't glide through water, she cut through it. She had shoulders like a swimmer and eyes like she was always chasing something out there. Something just past the edge of what you could see. Crescent Bay was the kind of place people forgot existed. All the buildings seemed a little too tired. The paint on the post office flaked like sunburn. The only cafe closed on Wednesdays. And if you asked someone where the edge of town was, they'd just nod toward the sea. It was there, between the slats of the pier and the early morning fog, that Mia trained, every day, rain or sun. Always the same course from Crescent Bay Pier to the Blue Water Buoy. Then back, 4 miles. Round trip, salt in her hair, goggles tight, no music, no crew. Just the sound of her own breathing and her father's boat following from a respectful distance. Until she didn't want the boat anymore. "Dad," she said one morning, tugging her swim cap into place without meeting his eyes, "I need to do this alone." Jack wanted to argue, but the ocean teaches you not to fight the current. You wait. You watch. You trust. So he waited. He watched. And she never came back. The sea that day was soft, gray, harmless looking. No storm warnings. No rogue currents. No signs of struggle. Just absence. The kind that gnaws through bone. By noon, Jack was calling the Coast Guard. By sundown, every boat in town was looking. Divers swept the route. Helicopters buzzed low over the surf. They found nothing. Not Mia. Not her cap. Not even a floating towel. Like she'd swum into the horizon and stepped off the edge of the world. People said it must have been a riptide, a muscle cramp, a tragic accident. But Jack knew the sea too well for that. He knew where the drop-offs were, where the rocks hid like teeth beneath the waves. He taught her those dangers when she was 7 the same year she swam a full mile without stopping. She wasn't reckless. She was precise. So, when they declared her presumed drowned, Jack nodded politely and began to dive. Every morning, every tide, every inch of seafloor within 10 miles of Crescent Bay, Jack had touched it. His hands, weathered and nicked, sifted endlessly through sand and shell, hoping for something, anything. He mapped the currents, studied new sonar. He spoke less, slept less. The townspeople whispered when they saw him not with judgment, but with pity. That's the man who's still searching, still hoping, still broken. But he didn't care, because something wasn't right. There were no goodbyes, no suicide note, no storm. Just the vast, brutal quiet. Jack kept thinking about her final days, how she'd seemed a little distant, a little unsure. She smiled. Yes, she always smiled, but there was a tightness to it, a tremble behind her ambition. Once, she told him, "What if I'm not enough?" And he'd laughed, said, "Mia, you're more than enough, you're unstoppable." But now that memory didn't feel so harmless. Now it felt like something buried, something unsaid. He started writing letters to her, filling notebooks, one after the other. Not because he believed she'd read them, but because the silence was too loud. "Mia, I found a shell with your initials scratched on it today. Made me think of when you were little, when you used to call the ocean your real home. Mia, the kelp forest near Pelican's Reach looks different this season. I think the currents shifted. Maybe that's what happened that day. Maybe you drifted. Mia, please." But no matter how deep he dove, no matter how far he searched, the sea gave him only echoes. And barnacles? And memory? But that wasn't the end. Because one morning, before sunrise, something changed. The ocean, flat and silver, held a shadow that shouldn't have been there, not in that spot. Jack, operating more on instinct than thought, drifted his boat toward it. A buoy. Old, rusted, half forgotten. And something strapped beneath it. Something small and black and wrapped in barnacles. A camera. And inside it, a ghost. One that breathed. One that had waited. What came next didn't feel real at first. But Jack was about to uncover the kind of truth the sea tries to swallow whole. And it would break everything open. It happened on a morning like all the others. But somehow, it didn't feel the same. The ocean was hushed, almost reverent, as if it knew something before Jack did. Mist clung low to the surface, a soft curtain hiding the world just long enough for memory to creep in. Jack's boat, the Sea Warden, drifted farther than usual, not by plan, but by instinct. A quiet pull he couldn't explain, as though the tide itself was trying to tell him something. He cut the engine, let the boat rock, and then he saw it. Not the blue water buoy, the one Mia always used, but an older one. Farther out, tilted slightly, coated in rust, barnacles hugging its base like ghosts. No one used it anymore. No one checked it. It should have been forgotten. But Jack didn't forget. As he swam toward it, every stroke felt heavy, not with exhaustion, but with something unspoken. A kind of knowing. At the base of the buoy, lashed tight with salt-stiffened straps, was a box. A GoPro, or what was left of one, encased in a waterproof housing, faded from sun and sea, but still sealed, still whole. Jack's hands trembled as he freed it. His fingers recognized the scratches before his mind did the small dolphin sticker she'd added, the initials beneath it. Pitijabah. Sue. Mia Callahan. He clutched the device like it was her heartbeat. And for the first time in 4 years, he stopped searching. Because he'd found something. Not a body, not closure, but something that could speak. And that was enough. Jack didn't wait. He took it straight to the station. The front desk officer knew his face. Everyone did. They didn't ask questions. Just led him down a hallway that smelled like paper and old coffee, into a room with a forensic technician and the kind of silence that makes time feel slower than water. Jack didn't speak as they opened the casing. The technician, a quiet man named Ethan, removed the battery, examined the swollen pack, and handled the memory card like a relic. No corrosion, no cracks. Maybe. He inserted it into the reader. The screen flickered once, twice. Then a voice. Testing, testing. And there she was. Mia. Not in a photo, not a fading poster on a community wall, but alive, on film, her face wet with seawater, her breath short but laughing. She adjusted the GoPro on the buoy, framed it, checked the angle like a girl planning her future. Jack's knees nearly gave out. She looked straight into the lens, perfect spot to capture my training today. The tech turned up the volume slightly, careful not to break the moment. Mia treaded water, the sun behind her, her voice soft and real. Day 42 of Olympic training. Coach says my endurance is better, but my turns are still awful. She smiled. Then her eyes shifted. The smile faded. I don't know. Sometimes I think I'm not cut out for this. Jack stared at the screen, every syllable slicing through him. He never knew she felt this way. Never knew the weight she'd carried beneath that determined grin. Then, she looked past the camera. Oh, hey there. The image jolted slightly as someone swam into view. A young man, his face distorted through water and glare, just a sliver of wet hair and dark eyes. He treaded water beside her, casual, friendly. Didn't expect to see anyone else this far out, he said. Just training, Mia replied. I'm Mia Martin. The man smiled. You're really pushing it. Swimming this far alone. I'm training for the Olympics. Open water. They chatted briefly, light-hearted. Almost too easy. He offered to race. She accepted. And then they swam out of frame. What followed was nearly half an hour of open water. Empty horizon. The lens barely moving. Then a flash. Far away. A speedboat crossed the screen, small at first, blurred by the fisheye view, but just visible enough to make out a logo. Stylized waves, letters beneath. Ocean Elite Marine. Jack leaned closer, heart thudding. The name meant nothing. Yet somehow, it felt like everything. He whispered Mia's name, and the sea, for once, whispered back. Jack didn't sleep. He watched the footage again and again, studying the man's voice, the slight accent, the flick of his wrist as he pushed his wet hair back. He couldn't explain why, but something about it clawed at his memory, like he should have known him, like he had seen that smile somewhere before. The police said they'd investigate, but Jack couldn't wait. A few days later, Crescent Bay hosted its annual Olympic Foundation charity event, a fundraiser, banners flapping in the wind, speeches, old faces, younger athletes looking to be seen. Jack had been invited months ago. He almost didn't go, until he saw the logo. Tucked at the back of the event hall, neat and polished, was a booth bearing the same name he'd seen on the footage. Ocean Elite Marine. Their logo, the stylized wave. The sleek lettering was unmistakable. Too clean. Too polished for what he'd found underwater. Two men stood behind the booth, smiling politely at passers-by. One was older, silver at the temples. The other, young, lean, nervous smile. The kind you wear when you're rehearsed. Jack approached slowly, forcing his voice steady. "Afternoon, I'm curious about your company. Do you sponsor athletes?" The older man nodded. "We do," proudly. "Equipment, training boats, transport, all part of our youth outreach." Jack gave a small nod, then asked, quieter this time, "Do either of you know someone named Martin associated with your company?" The silence hit fast, a beat too long. The younger man's smile faltered. His fingers twitched toward a stack of pamphlets, then back. The older one glanced sideways at him. Subtle, but Jack caught it. "I'm not sure," the man finally said. "We have a lot of staff. Hard to say without a last name." Jack pulled out his phone, turned the screen toward them. "Recognize this boat?" Their eyes widened. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The younger man stepped away, fumbling for his phone. The older one offered a thin smile. "You'd probably get more answers at the marina. We're just the outreach reps." And then they started packing. Fast. No eye contact. No small talk. Like something had cracked open, and they could hear the sea rushing in. Jack followed. Not openly. He stayed 3 cars back. Let the rain do the hiding. They didn't head for the main marina, the public one, the one with the neat docks and cheerful harbor patrol. No, they drove north, where the road thinned, where the coastline grew jagged and trees pressed close. Past the fishing shacks, past the cliffs. They turned down an unmarked road, one Jack had never noticed. And it led to ruin. What remained of an old marina sat hunched at the shoreline, swallowed by time. Wooden planks rotted. Chains rusted. Broken boats lined the weeds like forgotten bones. The place hadn't seen business in years. But it wasn't empty. Jack parked far enough to be invisible. Slipped out of the car. His boots sank into damp earth. He kept low, moving like a diver, again quiet, calculating. From behind a wall of brush, he saw them. The same 2 men and others. 5, 6, maybe more. They moved boxes from a van to a large, sleek speedboat at the dock. The way they moved, no talking, eyes always scanning, wasn't casual. Then he heard it. A voice. Not a man's. Faint, shaking. "Please, we've done everything you asked." The sound was fragile, like it might dissolve in the air. Jack froze. Then another voice, harsh, clipped. "Keep your heads down. Don't talk." And a woman sobbed. Not loudly, not dramatic, just quietly, like someone who'd forgotten what rescue felt like. The speedboat engine growled to life. Figures, wrapped in dark clothing, were hurried aboard. Jack caught glimpses of faces too pale, too thin, eyes wide but empty. They weren't athletes. They weren't volunteers. They were being moved. Jack ducked lower behind the brush as one of the men swept a flashlight over the edge of the marina. He didn't move, didn't breathe. The boat pulled away, carving a wound across the water. And in its wake, Jack felt something inside him break. This wasn't about a drowning. This wasn't about a riptide. This was something else. Something darker. And Mia was never just lost. She was taken. Jack didn't wait to think. He raced back to the car, hands trembling, salt wind biting at his skin, like it knew the truth he'd just uncovered. He barely remembered the drive, just the rhythm of the road beneath his tires and the name pounding in his skull. Mia. He called Detective Morgan before the fear could catch up. I found them. Where are you, Jack? They're moving women, young, scared. I think no. I know this is bigger than you thought. Morgan didn't argue. He just listened. And within minutes, the plan was in motion. Coast Guard dispatched, Harbor Patrol activated, aerial units scrambled. And Jack, he was already moving. By the time the search boats reached the outer channel, the speedboat was a fading blur on the horizon, heading south, toward a cluster of islands known for their secluded coves and labyrinthine underwater caves. Jack boarded the lead boat with Morgan, heart slamming against his ribs. He kept his binoculars fixed to the spray just ahead, the white trace of the fleeing boat already breaking into distance. They'll vanish in those caves, Jack warned. If they know them well enough, we'll never find them again. Morgan nodded, radioed ahead, adjusted the route. But Jack wasn't finished. He wasn't waiting on protocol. As the boat crested a low wave, he saw the yacht nestled like a secret just beyond the rocks. The speedboat was already moored beside it. Figures moving, too many. And then, Mia, a glimpse, a shadow. It was her. It had to be. His body moved before his mind could catch up. No tank. No backup. Just a mask, fins, and 4 years of grief tightening around his lungs. He dove. The water swallowed him like it always had. But this time, he wasn't looking for closure. He was coming for blood. The water was colder than he remembered. The pressure punched into his ribs with every stroke. But adrenaline overruled pain. He surfaced behind the yacht, dragging himself onto the back deck like a man reborn from the sea. He didn't knock, didn't announce. He moved through the corridors like a shadow, wet footprints fading behind him. The boat was mostly empty, crew scattered or below deck. Then he heard the voice, slurred, familiar. A young man, barely more than a boy, pacing the dive prep station, muttering to himself between swigs from a liquor bottle. Should have been different, he said. She was so close, just needed more time. Jack stepped into the open and saw him. The boy from the GoPro, older now, hollow-eyed, thin, drunk, armed, their eyes locked. "You took my daughter," Jack said, voice hoarse, low. Martin froze. For a moment, the bottle trembled in his hand. Then he laughed a strange, sad sound. "Didn't take her," he said. "Saved her. Or tried to." Jack didn't move. "Tell me where she is." Martin swayed, then slumped to a bench, gun still in hand. "My father. He wanted them. Promised success. Olympic medals. Sponsorships. Said he had connections. But it was never about the games." He looked up, eyes glassy. It was about control. Jack felt his pulse roar in his ears. "She's alive?" he asked. Martin nodded. "We never hurt them. I mean, not physically. Not always. But she wouldn't obey. She kept talking about you. About how you were coming. Said you'd never stop looking." A long silence. Then a new voice, sharp, cold, older. "I told you not to talk." Jack turned, and there he was. Grant Whitmore. The man behind Ocean Elite Marine. Crisp white shirt, spotless deck shoes, and a pistol leveled directly at Jack's chest. "I built everything," he said, voice brittle with power. "This yacht, this program. These girls, they were assets. Trained, molded." Jack stepped forward, ignoring the gun. "You stole lives." Grant scoffed. "They were nothing before me. I made them worth something." Martin rose slowly, gun at his side, shaking. "Dad, stop." Grant sneered. "Still weak, just like your mother." That's when it happened. The sound was quieter than Jack expected. 2 shots, almost at the same time. Grant's head jerked back. Blood bloomed like ink across his collar. He dropped to the deck, motionless. Martin staggered the spear Jack had grabbed earlier had fired, veering off target in the chaos and lodging deep into Martin's shoulder. His face twisted, not in pain, but something worse. Grief. Guilt. He looked down at his father's body, the weapon still warm in his hand. "I hate you," he whispered. And then he dropped the gun. Jack didn't wait to see what came next. A sharp pain bloomed in his leg. A bullet had found him. Maybe from Grant's final twitch. Blood soaked through his pants. He stumbled, fell, but forced himself upright. Outside, he could still hear the engines. The water. He limped to the edge of the deck, gritted his teeth, and dove once more into the deep. He wasn't done yet. Not until Mia was back in his arms. Not until he pulled her from the darkness. No matter what it cost him. The ocean burned. Salt in the wound, blood in the current. Jack swam like a man possessed, his vision narrowing, pain screaming through his thigh where the bullet had torn muscle. But he didn't stop. He couldn't. The cold numbed the worst of it. Or maybe it was the adrenaline. Or maybe it was something deeper, something primal, unkillable, a father's will. Down through the dark, he dove. The world below the surface was chaos, flickers of movement, trails of air bubbles. the distant flash of dive lights cutting through the murk. He saw them, dozens of bodies, drifting tethered not by gravity, but by something worse. Handcuffs. The women weren't swimming. They were being pulled, each one shackled to a man, a shadow figure in black gear, fins slicing like blades through the deep. Mia was one of them. He saw her through the fog of silt and blood, her hair tied back, her eyes wide, wrists locked to someone dragging her toward the cave mouth. Her strokes were uneven, panicked. Jack kicked harder. He was losing air. His head pounded. The pressure grew sharper with every meter. But he reached her, grabbed the captor's arm, yanked it back. The man turned, spear gun ready. But he never saw the diver behind him. The rescue officer struck fast. Clean wrestled the weapon away and locked the kidnapper in place. Another officer appeared, cutting through the water like a bullet, slipping a blade between Mia's wrists and the chain. The cuff snapped. She was free. And then her eyes found him. There was a pause in the water, a heartbeat. Recognition flared, mouth opening behind the regulator, eyes full of something Jack hadn't seen in 4 years. Hope. She surged forward, wrapped her arms around him. He tried to hold her, tried to say something, but the world tilted sideways. The cold won. His vision tunneled. And then there was only black. He came to with a gasp. Air too sharp, too bright. Fluorescent light flickered above him, swaying gently as the boat rocked. Somewhere distant, a siren wailed. Beside him, a medic's voice. Easy, easy. You're safe. Jack blinked. Pain anchored him to the stretcher, a foe in one arm, bandages tight around his thigh. And then her voice. Dad. He turned, and there she was, wrapped in a Coast Guard blanket, still soaked from the ocean. Hair matted, lips cracked but alive. Her eyes carried shadows. Her cheek was bruised. But when she saw him, she smiled. A real one. Mia, he croaked. You're here. I am, she whispered, taking his hand. You found me. He tried to lift his head, but the medic pressed him gently back. Let her talk, the voice said. You need to rest. Mia didn't wait. Her words came slow, careful. They told me you were gone, that you'd given up. He shook his head weakly. Never. She squeezed his fingers. They moved us a lot, trained us, conditioned us, told us we were going to be champions if we just obeyed. Her voice cracked. They said if I resisted, if I tried to run, you'd drown. They knew everything. Where you lived. When you dove, they said you'd slip under and never come back. Jack closed his eyes. Rage and sorrow curled tight in his chest. The man from the yacht, Mia said, her voice colder now, steadier. Whitmore. He ran it all. Called it performance engineering. said girls like us had potential athletic, young, clean backgrounds. She looked down. We weren't people. We were projects. Jack felt his throat close. I'm so sorry, baby. She looked back at him, her eyes wet but fierce. You didn't stop looking. No, he whispered. I couldn't. The medic stepped away, giving them a moment. Around them, others moved the rescued women, wrapped in blankets, being examined. Some cried, some didn't speak at all. The hum of the boat engine, the muted crash of waves, the quiet sobs, all of it blended into a kind of lullaby, one born of pain, but also survival. Mia leaned down, her forehead against her father's. I'm here now, she whispered, and I'm not going anywhere. Neither of them spoke for a while after that. There was nothing left to say and everything to heal. But the silence wasn't empty anymore. It was whole. Some stories don't end when the lights go out. They stay. In the salt on your skin. In the voice you thought you'd never hear again. In the hand that holds yours, trembling, saying you found me. But even now, not everything has surfaced. Some truths are still drifting, just beneath the waves. If this story stayed with you, like a name whispered through water, let us know below. Like the video. Share it with someone who still believes in searching. And subscribe for the next piece of the truth when it rises from the deep. We'll be waiting. Right here, where the silence never really ends. This was Buried Truths